When Ravi Shankar came to the West in 1956, he exposed Indian classical music to fans of Western classical music, and they embraced him. He won a Grammy Award for a record he made with the violinist Yehudi Menuhin, a great record called West Meets East. He then influenced a lot of great jazz musicians like John Coltrane. And then rock and roll discovered Ravi Shankar. When George Harrison heard the sitar and said, oh, I want to learn that, he, being George Harrison, one of the four Beatles, the most famous people in the world at that time, he was able to get the best teacher of the sitar. And so he befriended Ravi Shankar. And I always think of that friendship between Ravi Shankar and George Harrison as this great meeting of East and West, and one of the most important mentor-student relationships in history, because it became more than music. George was a spiritual seeker, and just at the beginning of his studies of the Hindu Dharma. And Ravi Shankar accelerated that. He gave him a copy of Vivekananda's Raj Yoga to read so he'd better understand the spiritual underpinnings of Indian music. Excuse me. And George went on to become a proponent of the Sanatana Dharma the rest of his life. But the first step was taking his fellow Beatles to meet Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in 1967 to learn his transcendental meditation, which was just becoming popular. And that moment, and the subsequent moment when they decided to go to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's ashram in Rishikesh, was unprecedented in the collision of East and West. In the book, I say it was like the axis of the earth shifted. The Beatles were so famous, and the age of mass media had just dawned. And when they adopted meditation, overnight, everybody in the world knew what a mantra was and what a guru was and what an ashram was, because it was in every newspaper, every magazine, relentlessly, television, radio. The publicity was beyond any, well, now it would just be on cable television every day and on the internet. But this was a huge moment. Everything from India now flowed to the West much more quickly and easily because anything the Beatles did attracted the attention of hundreds of millions of people, especially young people. The Beatles let their hair grow, young men let their hair grow. You know, that's the way it was. The Beatles took LSD, millions of young people took LSD. The Beatles stopped taking LSD and meditated instead. Millions of people did that. All of a sudden, meditation was on the map, and with it, all the other methods of yoga and all the other gurus and all the other sampradayas in the West. And what really happened, because that could have just been a fad, a trend that would have disappeared, but it didn't. Instead, it was the beginning of yogic teachings and Sanatana Dharma wisdom entering the mainstream. Because when people took up these practices, their lives changed for the better. I was one of them. I was a mess as a young man, and now I was meditating, doing asanas, and my life changed for the better. Our parents took notice. Our professors took notice. The psychotherapists took notice. And they said, what's going on? Are these kids just in a trance? Are they fooling themselves? Are they being bamboozled by swamis and holy men? Or is something real going on? Let's do some studies. And that was the beginning of this enterprise of science investigating yogic practices.